Let's get her done. Welcome to Chapter 13, The Thrilling Conclusion of Ghost Cat by Beverly Butler. Are you drawn in? Do you want to hear more? Well, then pull up your chair, grab a pillow and a blankie and a reading buddy, which... here's one of them. And let's enjoy the show. You sit right here, okay? Because you are a big reading buddy now. You are all grown. You get bigger every day. I can't wait to explore more books with you. Here we go. Annabelle listened, dry-eyed, as the minister spoke the final words over Henry Schulte the following Tuesday. It was a quiet funeral. Who's Henry Schulte? Is it who I think it is? As the minister spoke the final words over Henry Schulte the following Tuesday. It was a quiet funeral, just the immediate family, Mrs. Gordon and Sue, and the two men who had been consulting with old Pa when this tree slipped. These men had hardly known him before that, but he won their respect. He could be pleased by that, Annabelle thought. He wasn't ever happy at our place, Aunt Lil kept mourning, as she wasn't reproaching herself for having let him go into the search boat with Uncle Axel. When she wasn't reproaching herself for having let him go in the search boat with Uncle Axel. It didn't matter what I did for him. He just wasn't happy. I'll never understand it. But he had been happy that last hour of his life, Annabelle knew. She had seen him with his dignity given back to him for a little while, and she doubted he would count the cost too great. The bones of Julia Craig were quietly buried at that same day under the headstone that had waited for her so long. Ricky came home the next afternoon, thin and ravenously hungry for that dish of old dog chow and table scraps Aunt Nell gave Annabelle to feed him, but wagging his lopsided corkscrew tail as if he'd never been away. Annabelle sat on the back step in the dusk, alternatingly hugging and petting him until Uncle Axel called her inside to share in the phone call he was about to put through to her grandfather in Albuquerque. I want him to have the straight facts before some busybody sends him a wild piece out of the paper, he said severely. But he couldn't hide the grin, an actual grin, that spread across his face as he began to tell his news into the phone. Right. That's how all the evidence reads. She died alone, very likely the same day she got your letter telling of Annie's death. It could have been a heart attack or stroke. She was a prime candidate for both, you may remember, and a little balmy besides. That old tale that she burned up everything of Annie's was a lie. She had everything squirreled away in a kind of secret hiding place in the attic, stuffed into a wardrobe trunk that she kept facing the eaves so that nothing showed but its back. Everything from stuffed toys to the high school yearbook. Also, every letter of Annie's from Chicago after you two were married. All of them opened, presumably read. It looks like she got upstairs to file theirs, with them, and just keeled over doing it. Maybe from the shock, or grief, or plain custness. New word. I guess it means, cussed. Like, she swore herself out, she fired her last fuse. She was plain used up, and that one just used her up. I like that. I think that's the right interpretation. There's your homework. Go look it up. But in the last place anybody would think to hunt for her. The receiver was warm from his hand when he finally passed it to Annabelle. You all right, Annabelle? Her grandfather's voice came over the wire, more agitated than pleased. You sure? I'm fine. They checked me out at the hospital and sent me home. Todd's still there, mainly because of his asthma, but he has a broken ankle too. Stupid things to say. Why not add that Michael's cut knee had required 3 stitches? It wasn't likely her grandfather even knew who Todd and Michael were. But what was there to say to someone who hasn't beyond much? But what was there to say to someone who wasn't much beyond a remote acquaintance himself? My mother's coming Saturday or Sunday, she babbled on. I told her I'm okay, but when she saw the storm pictures on TV, she made up her mind she would come. Moreover, her mother had been so full of anxious questions that she hadn't once mentioned Donald Kimball. I don't blame her. She must have thought you were off to a nice, safe, wholesome vacation when she sent you up there. If I'd have known she was even contemplating such a move. Annabelle pulled a chair closer and sat down. He wasn't talking about the storm. He couldn't be. He was saying he could have foretold the vacation wouldn't be safe or nice or wholesome. It was pretty scary, some parts of it, she admitted, testing. Yes, I can believe that, he said slowly, as if he might be receiving or reviewing the possibilities. Another thing, I believe it's been too long since I've seen you. That's got to be remedied before the summer's over. Maybe we can talk better then. Annabelle hung up, feeling slightly stunned by talk better. Did he mean she could tell him everything? Would she dare? The answers, she realized, were less important than the discovery that he genuinely cared what happened to her. She should have dreamed pleasant dreams that night, but a vague impression of something left undone nagged at her through all of them. It was the same thing the next night. Then, in the small hours of Saturday morning, it wasn't a dream anymore. She was lying awake in the dark, listening to a cat crying close by. Just an ordinary cat, she told her jumping pulse. A coincidence. A serenading Tom. But she knew what it was. And by daylight she knew what she was going to have to do. She thought wistfully about waking Donna up for the sake of company, but persuading her might prove a day-long job, supposing she could be persuaded at all. Annabelle scribbled a note in lipstick on a corner, torn from the torn newspapers Aunt Lil used for drawer liners. Ah, okay. Back by breakfast, and tipped downstairs. Excuse me. What do you think she has to do? It's so important. Somebody else, maybe, would like to be laid to rest? Who could that be? Ding, 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 ding. La, 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 la. Where are we at? Come on. Okay. She had to go out by way of the kitchen. Todd, released from the hospital yesterday, was sleeping on the living room couch because the cast on his left leg made climbing the stairs out of the question, and he would have no part of being put in old Pa's room. His mother, Lydia, was asleep in the living room too, camping in a sleeping bag. She had hardly gone further from his bedside than the bathroom since her arrival in mere hysterics the day of the storm. She and Todd were flying home to Milwaukee this afternoon, and I bet he never even gets to try those crutches, Donna predicted. She doesn't think they're safe. She doesn't think anything's safe unless it's an errand she wants you to run. Lydia did have a way of looking at a person as if she expected an apology for your being in good health when her son was not. As for Todd, he was making a point not to look at Annabelle at all. There Hers was not the storybook ending, where they shared danger or wielded a bond of fellowship between unfriendly parties. No. She supposed he blamed her for the abrupt end to his vacation. Well, though the kitchen was the best route this one. Through the kitchen was the best route this morning, anyway. Annabelle stopped in the back entry to ease a grocery bag from the rack where Aunt Lil stored them after shopping. For a wonder, it didn't rattle as Annabelle tucked it under her arm. In the garage, she selected a trowel from Uncle Axel's array of tools. A spade would be better for what she proposed to do, but she didn't see how she could handle that on a bike. The trowel is a hand shovel, long, triangular, curved, pointy hand shovel for gardening. And a trowel, a spade, is a little bigger. It's a shovel. It's a big shovel, but it's got a narrow shovel head. Or I think they all would shovel. And from Uncle Axel's array of tools. A spade would have been better for what she proposed to do, but she didn't see how she could handle that on a bike. Ricky burst from the roadside brush to frisk around her as she wheeled onto the road. She didn't try to send him back, partly because shouting at him might wake someone else in the house, but more because she was glad of his company. What if she were wrong, and the ghost of Julia Craig hadn't been laid to rest with her mortal remains? What if it had been turned loose on the countryside instead? Annabelle kept an anxious eye on Ricky when she left the road and cut across the meadow to the old logging trail. He bounded along ahead of her on the trail, never once losing the crisp curl of his tail or showing the least hint of uneasiness. The trail itself had been chopped and cleared into an almost respectable road to accommodate the vehicles that had to pass over it to and from the cottage since the storm. No fear of missing it any more. Wheel tracks led from it right up to the house. Annabelle rode around to the front. There the door hung open, and a little crooked, and the great killer pine lay in sawed lengths on the ground. She had to sit the bike a moment, clamping the lid on her memories while her palms grew damp. Ricky nosed past her on the trail of his own that took him up to the door. He uttered an inquiring "Whoop?" in her direction, and trotted on inside without hesitation, ears perked, as high as their natural droop would allow. Annabelle felt the difference in the atmosphere as soon as she followed him over the door sill. The house was empty, quiet, but not silent, intently still. Just an ordinary, quiet, laced with small, ordinary sounds, like the jay fluting his morning song nearby, and the fly buzzing foolishly against the broken pane. A path from the door to the stairs had been opened in the wreckage on the floor. At one side of it lay an old clock face down. Its case was split open, and a sifting of sawdust and plaster coated its jumbled works. It would not tick again. All the same, Annabelle couldn't linger to marvel. Paper bag under her arm, she climbed quickly up the stairs. It had to be quickly, or she couldn't bear to stand in that attic once more, for one more time, even knowing Julia Craig was gone. The wardrobe was gone too, moved to Uncle Axel's garage for safekeeping until her grandfather decided what was to be done with its contents. Nothing remained of Julia Craig's secret but an old lamp sitting there where it had been for 44 years, and that decaying doll blanket bundled in a cardboard carton. Annabelle knelt by the carton and gingerly lifted the edge of the blanket. Traces of silver gray hair. A few small bones. The answer. that had come to her before dawn this morning. For what twisted reason no one could know, Julia Craig had brought the body of Annie's cat, Madcuf, up here to be stored in hiding with the other souvenirs. Annabel slid the carton into her bag and carried it carefully down the stairs and out. Ricky sneezed from his investigation of dusty corners in the front room, galloped to join her as she wheeled the bike back toward the big lilac behind the house. The old tree stood broad and green as there had never been any storm to speak of. This was where the little girl Annie and her cat had played together. This was where, in the picture Michael took, the blurred shape of a cat crouched, waiting. This was where Annabel dug the grave with the trowel and pressed the earth down over the neatly folded bag and what it held. When she straightened finally, the feather of a breeze touched her face. The lilac leaves stirred softly with its passing and hung quiet. She looked back one last time at the cottage. Was it an illusion? Or had it sagged visibly in the past week? It looked shaky and exposed without its towering wall of pines, as if it would not stand against many more storms. Ricky snuffed the trowel and Ricky snuffed the trowel in Annabel's hand, then licked her knuckles as if to suggest that there was more interesting things to do than stand meditating here. She scratched him under his chin and swung onto the bike. How much easier life would be if people could give and take love as simply as animals did. No payment demanded in terms of gratitude, dependence, blighted dreams. If people could just learn to live and let live. Her mood began to brighten as she left the logging road for the meadow. She had taken longer than she had expected on her errand. Breakfast was probably over, but she wouldn't get much flack on that account, particularly not from Uncle Axel. He credited her with having cleared a family name, and nothing she said or did these days could provoke his displeasure. Besides, today was special. In a few hours, her mother would be there. There was so much Annabel wanted to show her, so much to tell. Maybe her mother would find a second parting? Excuse me. Perhaps her mother would find a second parting too hard and insist on Annabel going home with her. Maybe, too, she'd agree to inviting Donna down for a visit later in the summer. Whew, Ricky said, warningly, coming to a standstill at the edge of the blacktop. A man and woman who obviously thought the road was deserted were strolling up ahead with their arms around each other. Quiet, Annabel told Ricky. If people are happy, let them be. She was easing back on her pedaling so as to not overtake the lovers too quickly when recognition struck. That woman was her mother. And the man? The sweet promise of a day dissolved into a blaze of fury. She should have known. She should have known. But in fact, she had known. She'd only been pretending to herself that because her mother had failed to mention him, Donald Kimball might fail to intrude on their private lives this once. Annabel shifted to top speed and bore down on them, jangling her bell as raucously as she could. The clinging arms swiftly unwound as she skidded to a stop, a bike length beyond her mother. Annabelle! Her mother was hugging before Annabelle's feet were both firmly planted on the ground. There wasn't anything Annabelle could do but hug back. There wasn't anything else she wanted to do. For that moment, everything was restored to how it should be. Donald was forgotten, left on the outside. How did you get here so soon? Annabelle asked. Everybody said not to start looking for you until this afternoon. We left right after work and drove part way last night, as far as Appleton, and then we set out bright and early this morning. That casual "we" jerked Annabelle back to earth, and an overnight trip together? How cozy. She stiffened, glaring past her mother's shoulder to where Donald was petting Ricky, who, instead of bristling as he usually did at a stranger, was territoriously wagging his tail. Donald grinned at her, his teeth a white flash of understanding beneath his mustache. We stayed with my sister and her family. It was all very proper and above board. Her mother laughed, except that I think Donald either stole the present he brought you or strong-armed his sister into giving it up. Oh, I did her a favor, Donald said righteously. She could never make up her mind which to give away and which to keep. She'd be overrun if decisions were left totally to her. I think Donald either stole something he bought you or strong-armed his sister into giving it up. Okay. That means Annabelle wouldn't have gotten the gift he bought. He got a gift his sister had. Okay. Annabelle stood watching them, taking notes, less of what they were saying than of the intimate banter tone they were using to say it. Oh, I need a reading aid, pencil. Excuse me. They sounded like a pair of teenagers in love. They even looked young, her mother especially, younger and fresher and softly aglow when she smiled at him. Annabelle twitched the lever of her bike bell as if by accident. What are you talking about? A kitten, her mother said. It's in the car. 6 weeks old and almost a perfect repeat of Muffin at that age, except far more white on the nose, maybe. Donald's sister has the mother and a basket of kittens, but Donald spotted this one right away. Come on, I'll introduce you. Donald started walking again, looking ridiculously eager. Oh, but why shouldn't he be eager? How could she accept a gift like this and not accept him too, or at least begin to? And how could she refuse a tiny, warm, appealing kitten of her own again to nurture and cuddle? She would be lost the minute she laid eyes on it, and Donald knew it. He was clever, all right, calculating and clever. I've got to put this bike away first, and this trowel. I'll meet you at the house. Without waiting for questions, she leaned over the handlebars and sped off, leaving him and her mother to follow as they would. She cut across the lawn to avoid riding too close to Donald's blue-toned car parked in the drive. As long as she didn't see the kitten, she'd be all right, and if she didn't have to see it, definitely she wouldn't touch it, not if she had to sit on her hands. Donald Kimball would learn she was not such a pushover to manipulate. She went out the side door of the garage, around behind the house, and in through the kitchen, stalling for time. The kitchen was empty, the dishwasher chugging its testimony that she had indeed missed breakfast, as if she could choke down anything at this point anyhow. She washed her grubby hands at the sink and walked on toward the front of the house. Todd's mother was descending the stairs, a suitcase in her hand. No chance of anything intruding between her and her child. Ah, Annie, I know your parents are here, but if I could borrow you just a minute. Parents, Annabelle opened her mouth, but she couldn't get the wind out, or get her wind somehow. "Mother!" Todd shrilled from the living room. "I told you! The name is Annabelle!" Astonishment carried Annabelle alongside his mother to the living room door. "What did you say, Toddy?" Lydia asked. Todd's fist was pounding a peevish rhythm against the padded arm of his chair. His leg in its cast rested on a footstool in front of him. "Annabelle," he repeated, beating out the emphasis. "Not Annie." His pale-framed eyes encountered Annabelle's, and the fist stopped an inch above the chair. Annabelle, too, was suspended in mid-beat. She was remembering those same words, flung at a beckoning image in a glass. And so was Todd. The knowledge leaped like a spark between them. It was almost audible. He swung his arm at her in a gesture more defensive than threatening. "Get out of here! What are you gawking at?" He would never admit the truth, of course, but Annabelle had no need to have it spoken. It was enough. It was everything. Just to know that she was not the only one who knew it. "Now, Toddy," his mother reproved tolerantly, "she's going to scoot up and check the top shelves of your closet for us." Annabelle caught sight of herself in the mirror over the fireplace as she stepped back. Predictably, her hair was uncombed, but the new haircut lent itself agreeably to a tousled look. She was wearing the plaid shirt and Donna's red belt that she had laid out last night for her mother's arrival, and in her haste this morning had put it on first thing. The coverall effect was attractively update and altogether. The overall effect was attractively update and altogether. Curiously, the uncanny likeness of her grandmother was gone, reduced to a mere family resemblance. Gone, too, was something scared that had long huddled within her, and with it something small and mean. She felt as tall inside as she was out, and the feeling was good. "I'm sorry," she told Lydia, "but I can't just now. They're waiting for me outside." And they were. Her mother and Donald chatting by the car with Uncle Axel like vacationers without care, but in fact waiting for a sign from her as to how to get on with their lives. As if she were the junior Julia Craig. She had to wrestle only a little to make herself go down off the porch. Then she broke into a run and crossed the lawn in long, free strides, reaching out to her mother and to Donald, and to the ball of golden white fluff that had begun to purr as soon as she bent her cheek to it. Ooh. Das ist the end. Finito. Oh. She really was resisting the relationship. She was resisting her mother's own happiness. She didn't really have a reason to not like Donald. I wonder if there was more. Well, there probably was. In fact, I don't know if there was a sequel to this book or not, but hey, the world is your oyster. I hope you enjoyed the book. We're going to do a thing, and then we're going to start another thing.